Thanks, everybody. I, like Keith, will tell you that I have a 20-minute presentation, which I'll try to get through in 10. Primary Petroleum is located in the Alberta Bakken in northwestern Montana. We've accumulated about 300,000 acres. And really, this play has taken off from the discovery from Rosetta Resources and Newfield Exploration in 2009. Primary happened to be at the right place at the right time. I'd love to tell you that I had this all planned from the very beginning, but anybody in the oil and gas business, and maybe even in the mining business, will tell you that you need that four-letter word along with the best business plan you ever had. And we finally got a bit of luck, and it worked out to our extreme benefit, and I'll show you that as we go forward. Here just gives you a bit of an overview. These are our southern acreage in northwest Montana. Very easily accessible acreage, 12 months a year. And we'll be spudding our first well later on in October. Right now we're scheduled to spud our first well on the 7th of October. Giving you a little bit of more perspective in Montana, the Alberta Basin Bakken is located in northwestern Montana and southern Alberta. It's about 175 miles in length, about 50 miles in width. We have the Rockies on the west as a defining boundary. We have the Sweetgrass Arch on the east as a defining boundary, and it's still open on the north and the south. In fact, Quicksilver is actually exploring for the Exshaw, which is the Bakken equivalent in Alberta, up in northeastern BC. And so our acreage is the green boundary that we have identified that. And the best way to identify it, it's the baby brother of the Williston Basin in eastern Montana and North Dakota. Give you a bit of overview on the team itself. I founded the company in 2005. Key people here I want you guys to focus in on is Jim Moretz. Jim Moretz used to be the VP of Exploration for Headington Oil and Gas. He's done what Primary is attempting to do. They took a $12 million investment in Headington Oil and Gas in 2004 and acquired 500,000 acres in the Williston Basin. They turned that into a divestiture in 2008 to XTO Energy for $1.8 billion. He's drilled over 300 Bakken wells, and with him and Bill Paddock, who's drilled probably 500 Bakken wells in the Williston Basin, they are our key operations guys that's going to take us to the plan of, and I'll be clear here, Primary is not going to become an E&P developer of a large oil and gas producer. We are setting ourselves up to be bought out by the majors. As you look at the company here, we've got about 146 million shares outstanding. We've got about $14 million in the bank. We have no debt. We have just under 300,000 acres, which we own 100% on. Our leases range anywhere between 7 to 10 years as time remaining on them. Our overriding royalties, so those are the burdens that we owe to the lessors that we've leased these acreage to, ranges between 12.5% and 15%. So that sets us up perfectly, as I'll tell you further along, setting ourselves up for a joint venture with a major for us to be able to capitalize on our acreage position. Give you a bit of a chronological overview of where the company is. We started acquiring acreage in 2007, 2008. The defining discovery of this play came at the end of 2009 and early 2010. Rosetta acquired 100,000 acres and drilled 3 wells in 2009, 1 horizontal and 2 vertical. Newfields came in at the end of 2009 and bought 156,000 acres and they spent $12 million. They set the benchmark at $85 an acre. So back then, if you look at our company at that stage, we had a $3 million market cap, and we had 110,000 acres. But it was Rosetta's findings from the drill program in February of 2010. They identified that their 3-well program identified oil saturation in the Lodgepole Bakken and Three Forks and the Nisku, and overpressurization in the Lodgepole Bakken and Three Forks. And those are the formations that the horizontal fracking, as Keith mentioned earlier, is what can exploit these plays and give you potential upside. They gave a resource calculation of 13 to 15 million barrels of oil per section. They identified a recovery factor of between 7.5 to 10% recovery of the 13.5 to 15 million barrels per section. So they went from 100,000 acres to 300,000 acres and continuing to grow in the last year and a half. Newfield went from 156,000 acres to 320,000 acres. The two companies have drilled 20 wells in the last year and a half. Newfields has 2 wells in production horizontally. Rosetta has announced production out of 10 of their 11 wells vertically from the Bakken Formation, and they're now in the process of drilling 7 horizontal wells. They've given some IP rates, they've given some production flows, and all very encouraging. And primary from that stage has gone from 110,000 acres to just under 300,000 acres, and we're probably a week to 10 days away from announcing a joint venture with a U.S. major that will change the face of what this whole Alberta Basin Fairway in Montana will look like, not only from a credibility standpoint, but also from a valuation standpoint and from a development program standpoint. So I would suggest you guys stay tuned over the next couple of weeks. If you look at this play in the last 18 months has had over $500 million spent on it between land acquisition, between drilling and joint ventures. Land here on the Alberta side started a year and a half ago at $500 an acre, and right now it's garnering over $3,000 an acre. Land on the Montana side went for $1.50 an acre, and the last land sale in September 7th, land went for over $325 an acre. So from a relative growth perspective, land is becoming very expensive. If you look at the 300,000 acres that Primary has, you take into consideration our land acquisition costs, our leasing costs, and the 250 miles of 2D seismic that we have in our acreage, we're still at under $40 an acre for our costs. So we're nothing more than a rounding error from our acquisition costs and where we are. And we still have the ability to grow our acreage position in a very cost-effective basis because we did a deal back in 2008 with a co-op called Montana Overthrust Management. We have an exclusive right to pick up acreage on a first right of refusal basis where they have tied up over 1 million acres in Pondera and Teton County, and that's how we've been able to grow our position quicker and at a more cost-effective basis than anybody else in the area. We've identified some of the majors on both the Alberta side and the Montana side, and the bottom part of that is just to show you what the Alberta Bakken can turn into. The Williston Basin was a failure first time around without the science of horizontal fracking, and now it's got over 3,000 wells. It's got a resource, a recoverable oil of 4.3 billion barrels, and it's got over 380,000 barrels of oil producing there per day. Similarities and differences, really what you see here is you've got a baby brother to the Williston Basin. It's not as deep, costs are going to be half as much to drill, but we're not going to get the big IP rates that you're going to see, that you've seen in the Williston Basin. You're not going to get the big EURs, which is the estimated ultimate recovery of these wells. You're going to see IP rates of between 200 and 300 barrels a day, and you're going to get EURs of somewhere between 250 and 300,000 barrels of oil. But on a $75 price tag and a $4 million well cost and a 7.5% to 10% recovery factor, you're going to see IRRs of around 75%. Nothing wrong with those numbers. Give you an idea, this is a petroleum system that just shows you here, shows you there's been over 300 million barrels of Bakken source oil that's been produced in the area, and we're just starting to exploit it with the horizontal fracking going forward here. Just give you an idea, stratigraphically, we're right on trend with the Newfield and the Rosetta and the wells that they've drilled. This just goes to show you from a 3D seismic perspective that there's no geological event that shows that there's any difference between the acreage that Rosetta and Newfields are drilling on the Blackfeet and the Primary Petroleum acreage to the south. This gives you an idea of the 20 wells and the activity that's going on in the area. Just to the north of us and the producing wells. And the yellow represents close to 300,000 acres of oil. The black dots represent all the wells that we've been able to identify that have been drilled from the 50s to the 80s that have Bakken source that have been able us to continue going forward. The boxes represent the 3D seismic programs that we're currently finishing off, and we'll be drilling our 6 vertical wells starting later on this month. Finish that by the end of the year, and we'll be starting our horizontal program in the beginning of, or in the spring of 2012.